Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar series that we've organized from Nine Sigma side. My name is Rick Wielens. I am heading up the European team at Nine Sigma. And this webinar is especially for those people that are working as corporate innovators inside large organizations. People that are not so much talking about innovation as such, but are actually doing it every day. And the topic of today, a very interesting topic today, and we've got some great people sharing their experience, is around choosing projects suitable for open innovation. What works and what doesn't. So with me this afternoon, I've got two people, very successful and knowledgeable OI practitioners. I think both of them have actually been in open innovation longer than I have, and I've been in the space for about 8 years now. And let me start with introducing Miles Eddowes, who is from Mondelez International. So welcome, Miles.
Thank you.
Let me briefly introduce you, and I'm gonna try to keep it as brief and short as it is. Although you've got an enormous experience, over 20 years, a real veteran in collaborative R&D, both in the healthcare and consumer goods industry. Miles actually already started with open innovation before 2003 even. He was one of the first people in LinkedIn to have an open innovation actually in his job title. He now leads the Innovation Accelerators Department at Mondelez International, covering the full breadth of innovation skills from knowledge retention and reuse through open innovation and IP strategy. So you may not know Mondelez International by name, but you are for sure familiar with the brands that they have. Brands like Cadbury, Milka, Toblerone, biscuits as Oreo and Belvita, Halls and Trident Confectionery, and up to 2 years ago, Mondelez went by the name of Kraft Foods, and that might ring bells at people more than Mondelez does today. The North American grocery brands were spun out as a separate entity, and it is now called Kraft Foods Group. So welcome, Miles, and thank you for joining this webinar. As the other speaker, we have another very experienced guest on board. That's Stephen Clulo. So Stephen, welcome as well to the conversation. Stephen has I would say, somewhat of a similar background and somewhat of a different background compared to Miles, in the sense that Stephen has a background in biotechnology and pharmaceutical industries, very much on the healthcare side, where he started working already with open innovation years ago. And he enjoyed it so much that he joined us, Nine Sigma, a few years back, where he gets to do open innovation every day. Stephen enables doing the healthcare, our healthcare programs, healthcare science projects to solve challenges, develop new products, and find great partners. So Stephen, also welcome to the webinar series. And let me start with the first question on our topic. So Miles, can I start with you? And let me ask you by starting you to tell us a bit about the Mondelez International kind of environment and your approach to open innovation. How do you actually select projects for open innovation at Mondelez?
Great question, thank you, Rick. So, whilst we love serendipity, our effort really goes into sourcing the enablers from outside of the organization that can help us get to market ever more quickly, adding scale at speed, as well as stretching the internal ambition we have to take on those challenges that only a company of our size, when working with the best on the outside, can achieve. So at one end of the innovation scale, that's all about what open innovation can turn a speciality into a commodity, maybe by creating multiple uses for it, or plugging and playing a mature technology from one industry into ours. So let's look at the kind of packaging that we have on a product like our biscuits. With Oreo, we launched a peel and reseal flow wrap that you can see here, where we can open, take out a biscuit, put it back again, and keep it fresh for all of the rest. Now, a similar approach can be found right the way across the product. So this is actually the latest biscuit brands that we've got in Europe, Chips Ahoy, but also across our chocolate tablets, where there's a peel and reseal at the back. I could give you another example of our Stride ID chewing gum, where we have a magnetic closure that's an external company brought us that adds a real sort of premium feel to that product. Now, the point is we tend to be number one in the marketplace for most of our strategic categories. And this is a real strength for scale or multiple application. We are a one-stop shop for the rollout, not just across multiple geographies, but in a varied range of equally applicable products, be it biscuits, be it tablets. But then at the other end of the scale, it's about how we marry our innovation strengths with those of others to make that kind of difference that no single firm can make alone, or at an even earlier stage, getting involved in pre-competitive consortia. If you take a look at www.cocalife.org, you can see what we need to do in the cocoa agronomy, or have a look at our gallery and you'll see a whole challenge we have there around what we call our call for well-being. It's about how can we achieve targets for salt and saturated fat reduction in our foods. So this is really, if I summarize, all about matching the right relationship to the needs. So we look for the window of opportunity to make an impact in the markets. We ensure that there's a return on the effort. We validate that there's a fit with our brands. And then finally, we try to work out what real difference we can make to what the partner brings to the table. So it's absolutely not about having PhD studentships on a challenge that is actually holding up a market launch. It's much more about ensuring the investment required to deliver a technology breakthrough really is going to change the market dynamics. So pay back the partner for bearing their share of the risk and the reward.
All right, that's very, very interesting and very dense. So let me summarize what I'm hearing, Miles. So what I hear is that the way that you look at open innovation is very much a structured approach and a process at Mondelez, and solutions are brought in from other industries. But what I'm also hearing that is, I love the fact that you're able to show some real examples. You're basically distributing solutions that are working for one part of the business to other parts of the business. And I think that's something that's valuable and perhaps even overlooked by many organizations as well. And I also hear you saying that OI is about using your global company, your strength as a global company with global outreach and ramping capability, almost like a launching platform for external collaborators and for innovations. And the last thing I heard you say, and I think it's perhaps a point that is not often understood very well, although I think many people that have been in the space for a long time talk about, is that OI is about creating a win-win. And what I'm hearing you say, it's both for Mondelez as well as for the external innovator who has been involved in the program and in the collaboration. So that's very insightful. So Stephen, could you, from a Nine Sigma perspective, because this is very much, let's say, a Mondelez and let's say years of experience in the food and fast-moving consumer good business, what's your perspective from a more perhaps broader, if you like, Nine Sigma perspective on innovation projects that companies are running?
Thanks, Rick. So if I take a very broad view, there are really two types of open innovation projects that companies are running. On one hand, it's problem solving. On the other, it's growth opportunities. So open innovation is great for solving problems. It brings in fresh ideas and new approaches. You find partners in other industries who may well already have solved a problem. Often we work with companies who want to find a collaborator to help them launch a product really quickly, or companies who find they can't progress a particular project because they lack key technical capabilities. And open innovation helps them find partners with complementary capabilities so that they can break through the roadblocks in the project. And these projects are great, but for me, the more interesting projects are where companies are looking for long-term growth opportunities. So let me give you an example there. We work with Siemens, who are the largest engineering company in Europe. And they have seen that amateur engineers are coming together online on sites like Quirky and Shapeways to work together to design, make and share new products. And Siemens asked, how can we use crowd engineering for professional engineering projects? So they're running an open innovation project to look for new concepts and new business models for professional crowd engineering. And this, talking about the win-win, this is a great opportunity for entrepreneurs, innovators and small companies to partner with Siemens to do something that's really novel.
That's excellent. That's very, very interesting. Thanks, Stephen. So let's go a bit more into the actual approaches. because there are many open innovation approaches that are visible: ideation, prize-based challenges, co-creation projects, or even just open innovation approaches to identify partners straightforward. Are some projects more suited to certain open innovation approaches? And Miles, can I start with you?
Oh, absolutely. So let's talk in some detail about what we actually see ourselves bringing to the table. I often talk my colleagues through a skill scale analogy with driving. So when I was 17 years old, that first task my driving instructor had to do was safely prove to me that, contrary to my opinion at the time, I knew nothing about how to operate a manual transmission or a stick shift on a car. I had to be moved from a state of being unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent. And by the time I got my driving license, my permit, I was safe, but having to think very hard about every task. I was, in effect, consciously competent. And then several years down the line, you're driving down the motorway, the freeway, not needing to think about when to use mirrors or indicators, and you're in a state of unconscious competence. And that's not the same as being a true master, right? So Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton getting out of a Formula One car could tell a car engineer how to make a better car. So for us inside, we take each technology area and rate ourselves according to that level of competence. So through our internal endeavors that got us the ESSA claim on sustained energy release for our Belvita biscuits, we would rate ourselves as being unconsciously competent or higher. So driving down the freeway, telling a car designer what would make a better car. And the gallery challenge that we have around sustained energy release talks to what further expertise can complement our understanding. And likewise, on the one that we have for Robusta coffee, we are after the processing technologies that can make Robusta beans, the ones that can be grown at lower altitudes and are resilient to drought and pests, match that taste profile you get from the more delicate premium Arabica plants. And in these cases, whilst the shorter term options are always likely to be looked at first, we're equally excited about the opportunities for the longer term joint developments, where we marry our innovation strengths with a partner to make a competency that could otherwise never exist. Whereas the innovation needs that we have right up now around things like processing for fresher vegetables and cheese, or the processing of viscous liquids like chocolate, those are the ones where we might be competent, but we're having to concentrate very hard. And we would much rather work with somebody who has the answer today than ever think that we could out-invent them tomorrow. So the ideas that come in here and excite us are the ones, or excite us most, are the ones where the technology is transferring from a distant part of our industry into our context, or perhaps from an adjacency. So I'll give you the example of encapsulating food nutrients, where a lot of that science is perfected in the pharma industry.
Yeah. Thanks. I absolutely love the analogy, Miles, with Michael Schumacher, of course. And I think the question that I think perhaps every organization needs to ask themselves when they do programs and projects, and that's what I'm hearing from what you're saying, is that first question you need to ask yourself, how proficient am I? You know, how good am I in this, and is it something that I actually want to go outside with and can go outside with, because there's a big chance of learning a lot from what the outside world is doing, or is it something that I am actually the Michael Schumacher already in, and should I just see that as a core knowledge and competence and stick to that? Stephen, what's your perspective on that? How do you see that? Are some projects more suited than others?
Yeah, I agree that certain projects are more suited to certain open innovation approaches. As Miles indicated, in many cases, the reward of a long-term business relationship with a partner can actually be much more valuable than a prize-based challenge. For example, licensing your technology to a partner, or co-creating and launching a product and sharing the revenues can lead to big financial rewards in the long term. But other projects do require different approaches. So Under Armour, the American sporting goods manufacturer, asked Nine Sigma to help them develop an ecosystem of apps around their Armour 39 personal athletic performance monitoring system. And so individuals, academics and small businesses were asked to submit a proposal for the app they wanted to develop. The 50 best proposals received a cash prize and a software developers kit for the Armour 39. And they worked with the developers kit to develop a prototype app. And at the next stage, the best apps got a bigger cash prize, and they were invited to show their app to Under Armour executives and Armour 39 fans at the Under Armour Future event, where all of the leaders in Under Armour get together, all of the people who are passionate about Under Armour and their personal performance monitoring system get together to talk about future developments and what the company's going to do in the future. And that gave them just a real opportunity, a real pull to get some interesting ideas and some interesting apps coming in. Best of all, the app developers got to retain all their own IP and launch the app on the market with Under Armour's endorsement. So here, an approach with cash prizes and the opportunity to co-develop the app with Under Armour attracted and enabled individuals and small companies to launch a product that really seamlessly integrated with a big company's products. And Under Armour benefited because they got an ecosystem of interesting, user-friendly apps created around their personal fitness monitor, and this encouraged more people to start using the monitor itself.
Right, and very, very good. So on top of what Miles just shared, what I'm hearing is it's a bit of a balancing act between understanding your own competence or incompetence, if you like, understanding what you're really looking for in terms of what the real problem or need is that you're working on, but also, at least as important, is to understand which community you actually need to invite and address, and what kind of opportunity would be relevant for them, so that you can invite them for relevant external input. Okay. I mean, let's go a bit further into this. Are all topics relevant? Are there some topics that are actually too big or too risky for an innovation approach? And Miles, can I start with you again? Is that an observation that you would share? Some topics too big and too risky?
Yes, and I'd say that's the beauty of my department, covering a full span of knowledge management through open innovation to IP strategy. I mean, we have our trade secrets, the ones I'm not going to tell you about, but they are the ones where we are Michael Schumacher, and we'll keep it in-house up to the point where the open innovation opportunity becomes the need to add scale at speed or make the cost structure for it to be much more viable. And the general acid test that we would use when deciding whether something should be disclosed in an open challenge is the question, would our competitors be surprised to know that we would ever want that? And these are the cases where we are much less likely to openly solicit on a gallery under our own brand. We are going to be looking to directly approach the potential partners who we have worked out are capable of solving the challenge.
Yeah.
And then there are the products that the consumers simply don't want us to change. We get lots of suggestions for this kind of product, but a nation's favorite chocolate bar should always taste the same to you as it did when your grandmother sneaked you a square when behind your mother's back.
Okay. So what I'm hearing on the one hand side is a consideration about information disclosure, which is an important consideration, I guess. But on the practical side, it's an approach that also requires breaking down the required solution into problems. Are you agreeing there, Stephen? Do you agree that some problems are perhaps too big for OI?
Yes, I definitely agree. I think some projects are just too big for OI. If you said to me you wanted to run an OI project to cure cancer, I'd absolutely applaud your good intentions, but I'd tell you that it's just too big a topic. I think the trick is to break down the big topics. OI can definitely help identify new approaches to earlier diagnosis of cancer, or find ways to develop the most effective treatments for certain types of patients. Breaking the project down and focusing on certain aspects makes it achievable through open innovation, and it's a key skill to know how to break the big projects down and how to focus them so that they will work with particular open innovation approaches. Are some projects too risky for open innovation? That's a really interesting question. I think the risk in open innovation is often the risk of being open, and companies are sometimes scared to say that they have a problem, that they lack certain capabilities, or that they want to find partners to help them. And getting people comfortable with being open is often one of the major enablers of open innovation. there are lots of things you can do to reduce the risk or the fear of being open. For example, just running projects anonymously can be a really big help here.
Yeah, and I guess to add perhaps from the experience talking to a lot of clients that are at the start of something like this, is that there's a misperception that they think that it's open means open all the way, and obviously you're open at a certain point in your innovation process, and then you need to close it again typically to be able to protect your own position and your own IP and product development, which of course is what Miles already was talking about the secrets in the kitchen that cannot be shared. So we've talked about projects, and we've talked about the size and type of projects. To what extent does the size and nature of a company influence the type of projects, open innovation projects that can be run successfully? Does it actually matter, Miles, the size and the nature of a company for these kind of open innovation projects?
It affects the style, absolutely. So the whole Alliance Framework approach is well documented. So the books and the conference talks by Gene Slowinski, Matt Segala, etc. And the element of want, find, get, manage that we find ourselves having to emphasize most with colleagues who may be new to open innovation is that part about the alignment of expectations with one partner being very different to the other. So a research collaboration with a partner who is a large ingredients provider has a very different risk-reward profile than, say, a technical consultancy or working with a startup, a spin-out from a university. I should say, mind, that open innovation with an academic can be all about scientific peer-reviewed papers that adds credibility or pre-competitive knowledge to grow an entire market or solve an industry-wide problem.
Okay. So thanks, Miles, for mentioning the one, find, get, manage, because I think that's a structure that I think the people that have been working in open innovation for a while are familiar with, but perhaps not everybody. So Gene Slowinski is one of the people that came up with this structure, and it's been well documented. So one, find, get, manage is something you might want to look into if you're not familiar with it. And the interesting part as well, I think, is that it seems that there are still many organizations seem to refuse to start with the problem or the need or the actual want that they're looking for, and they're still more on the ideation side. Stephen, what's your perspective on that? Does the size and nature of companies influence the type of OI projects from your view?
Yes, definitely. I think Miles gave a very interesting perspective from an experienced corporation looking at an experienced corporation, a corporation that's really experienced in open innovation, looking and evaluating potential OI partners. And you raised an important point about companies who want to start using open innovation. And I think one of the challenges that companies who are starting with open innovation face is that they often underestimate just the time it takes to review the opportunities that come in from outside. For example, the time it takes to put an NDA in place, to really engage in a meaningful conversation with a potential partner, to actually do a deal, and then perhaps the important part, to run the joint project to deliver something of value to both partners. So even running a corporate ideation portal can be a huge undertaking. For example, my Starbucks idea has received over 150,000 submissions in 5 years, but they've only implemented 170 ideas. That's less than 0.2%. But all the other than 99.8% of submissions have to be really carefully dealt with. The company's reputation is really important. The unwanted submissions must be politely declined with a good explanation, and that's a huge amount of work and something that people new to open innovation often underestimate. So again, at 9 Sigma, we find that adopting the needs-based approach can be much more productive. Needs-based open innovation projects are where companies actually spend time defining what would be the most valuable thing to them, and then inviting proposals from people that can meet this need, rather like Miles has been talking about. And needs-based open innovation projects are 10 to 100 times more efficient than unfocused ideation initiatives.
Right. Right. Okay. Thanks for that insight, Stephen. And I think it's an interesting step, perhaps, towards, let's say, the internal dynamics that organizations might have when they're selecting projects for open innovation. So perhaps going back to you, Miles, can organizations actually suffer from this internal bias when they're in the process of selecting topics for open innovation? And if you want to overcome that, what are the things that you guys are doing to get beyond that?
Well, personal networks are strong enablers, aren't they? If there are two equally capable partners presenting us with different but both viable solutions to a pressing challenge, but one is new to us, but the other is on the doorstep willing to replicate an IP arrangement that's worked for us before, it's very easy to see the temptations of jumping straight in with that known entity. So the key is technical diligence. It's about going slow in the beginning to go fast in the end. So back to this racing car analogy. There's a YouTube video I love of a 900-meter race between a Formula One car and a Typhoon jet fighter.
We share it with everybody. Yeah, okay. Thanks.
I'll let you guess the outcome, but the winning margin. But here's a clue: the car is ahead at the halfway mark. And it's the same in innovation, reaching out to check for what you don't know and striving to work with the best wherever they are. Gets you to a faster innovation rate in the closing segments.
Okay, that's interesting. So what you're saying here is that it's not just about, let's say, asking the right question and getting the right problem out, and even identifying the good player, but also being aware that it takes a diligent approach to get the relationship developed and get it working before you can actually achieve results. Stephen, is that also your experience?
Yes, I think that's a really good point that Miles makes. There are times where you have to slow down to go faster at the end. And I think problem or challenge definition is a really good example of that. We like to work with clients to help them define what they really need. Clients often say they want X, but when we engage with them about their situation, their ambitions, we and the client realize that they should be looking for something very different. When we worked with the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative, they wanted to develop an AIDS vaccine. And my colleague Al Malouf realized that the key challenge was really a challenge around protein stabilization. And so we ran the Open Innovation Initiative with this topic, and it was really successful. And it was so successful that the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative went back to the Bill Gates Foundation to ask for more money to fund the solutions that 9 Sigma identified. So we slowed down during the challenge definition phase, but actually we got a much better outcome at the end. Okay.
That's a good insight. So Miles, what are the things then that a company can do to maximize the chance of an OI activity to succeed? And are there internal elements that need to be right before an OI project is launched to the world?
Yes. First, it's about knowing what we want is what we really, really want. Don't want to sound like the Spice Girls here, but it's all about that strategic alignment. And then we have our step-by-step framework. So checking what we already know to inform us of the best way of asking what others know before we put in place the IP strategy that is first and foremost about adding scale at speed and that the necessary IP exists and it's being accessed rather than the specifics of who owns what. And of course, there's being open-minded, being as receptive to the solutions to problems that you did not know that you had. Right.
Is that... Stephen, is that something that you also recognize from your side?
Yes, I think that's a key point. One of the things that always makes me smile is it's quite common for open innovation practitioners to say it would have been so much easier if I'd involved our legal department earlier. And sometimes people view their legal departments as blockers to open innovation, but when they talk to them, they realize that the legal department actually like the idea of being more open to external inputs, and they can also help you design programs so that you de-risk open innovation. So I think that early engagement with key stakeholders, particularly around IP management, is absolutely crucial.
Okay, so it's a combination, I would say, then of early engagement of the relevant players inside your organization to basically already level the path that you need to take once you're able to move forward with something that hopefully turns out to be a real innovation. And then next to that, it's a lot of it is about preparation, is what I'm hearing. Perhaps it would be good to get some examples to make it perhaps even more hands-on than the packaging that Miles already showed and shared with us. But can you give me a few examples, Miles, of projects that was a project that was very successful, and perhaps also, because that's where we learn from typically, something that wasn't that successful and didn't work out as expected, and perhaps a bit insight into the why of that?
Okay, so well, probably our poster child for OI is the one that screams open innovation in so many ways is our on-demand coffee platform, Tassimo, the brew and the pods. It's a marriage of our brand with those of others, the kitchen appliance and the drinks from others that are licensed to the platform, complementing our own in-house range. But it's also about the marriage of our technical expertise with that of others. So fluid mechanics developed elsewhere, coming in with our understanding of the chemistry of water-meeting coffee grinds. It's also about the complementarity and supply chains and distributions for the brewer through one channel and the pods on the other. And the success factor, I'd say, in all of that is clarity on what each side brings to the table. So what the reward model is, and this constant reuse of the word complementarity. Mm-hmm. For what we haven't cracked yet, everything that's up on the gallery are enduring needs where we're still looking for the better solution. And for many of them, there are technologies that we've evaluated that have a better functional performance than what we have in market. But the barriers, as is so often the case, is the cost, it's the scale and the consumer acceptance.
So just for everybody who's listening into this, thanks Miles for listening. Miles is referring to the Mondelez International Gallery. You can find it on 9 sites. That's where the needs are from Mondelez that are let's say branded on the gallery that they have with all the questions and all the innovation needs. For those who haven't looked at it, very interesting, high quality needs published there that they've worked on. Stephen, can you give us a bit of an example as well, something that you've worked on yourself of something that worked, and perhaps also something that didn't work out all the way it was supposed to do?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, one project that gave me a lot of pleasure was a project we ran with a European agricultural vehicle manufacturer.
Typical healthcare project, eh?
I found a partner for them that had a fantastic solution. The partner was a California manufacturer of satellites, space satellites. And the beauty was that this satellite manufacturer had fantastic mathematical modeling capabilities. And they were able to model the solution and prove that it met all of our clients' requirements. And it was great fun to introduce an agricultural vehicle manufacturer to someone in a completely different industry who had a ready-made solution for them. And it was a really good example of adjacent innovation, moving a solution from one industry to another. Obviously, not all projects go to plan, but you always learn something from that. So we worked with a company who wanted an invisible plastic tube. And we consulted with the 9 Sigma network, and we spoke to a huge number of experts in different fields. And they told us there was no easy way to change the properties of the plastic to make it invisible. And we presented all of this expert evidence to our clients and told them there was no easy solution. And to my surprise, the client was really pleased. They thought that it was excellent evidence, and it had presented a really strong argument that they need to take a different approach to making the component invisible. So while we didn't find them a solution, the project was a success for them because it closed down one avenue that they'd spent a lot of time working on that wasn't going to work. And so the insights enabled our client to focus their resources on more productive approaches. So the interesting thing there is when you go out and you're open to input from a wide variety of sources, you learn a lot as well.
Okay, okay. So there's been always an interest. Oh, there's always something to learn. Basically, is what I'm hearing, Stephen, from your experience. So I'm looking at the time, and we've spent the last 35 minutes, and it was really dense. So first of all, thank you both for sharing those insights and for being so open.